Hello, and thank you for tuning into this workshop. My name is Jo Eagle, and I'm the Early Years Leader at Hartford Infant and Preschool and one of the reception teachers. The aim of this video presentation is really just to share with you the standards your children are expected to meet at the end of their reception year with us, and to think about what we can do together to give your children the very best possible chance of reaching those standards. In September 2021, the new Early Years Foundation Stage curriculum was launched. At Hartford Infant School, we want all of our children to be curious, confident learners who can communicate effectively. A good partnership between school and you as parents is key to supporting the children to achieve this aim. Alongside the curriculum documents for the Early Years Foundation Stage, there are also some non-statutory documents to flesh out the educational programmes outlined in our curriculum. At Hartford Infant School, we use development matters to support our delivery of the Early Years Foundation Stage curriculum. This is a key element of our Early Years curriculum, and this informs what we teach the children. This guidance is woven into our planned learning for inquiry, maths and literacy, as well as our enhanced and continuous provision learning opportunities. It's broken down into 7 areas of learning. These 7 areas of learning are further broken down into different sections, which we will talk about in more detail shortly. The first prime area of learning in the Early Years Foundation Stage curriculum is personal, social and emotional development, and this comprises of 3 areas: self-regulation, managing self and building relationships. Another prime area is the area of communication and language. This comprises of a range of skills and opportunities to support our children across all areas of their learning. It includes listening, attention and understanding, as well as speaking. The third prime area of our curriculum is physical development. This includes both gross motor skills and fine motor skills. Alongside our 3 prime areas of learning, there are 4 specific areas of learning. The area of literacy includes both reading and writing. Another specific area is the area of mathematics. In the new curriculum, this includes number and numerical patterns. Our Understanding the World learning incorporates some of the more traditional elements of the curriculum, such as history, geography and science. In the Early Years curriculum, these are past and present, people, culture and communities, as well as the natural world. The 7th and final area of learning of our curriculum is expressive arts and design. This includes creating with materials and opportunities to be imaginative and expressive. This incorporates art, design and technology, music, as well as drama. The Development Matters guidance shows typical development and expectations for children from birth all the way to 5 for each of the areas that we've just looked at. This is quite a lot of information, so to make the document manageable, each area is broken down into what we call ages and stages. This is an extract from the guidance for supporting children in their communication and language, and the pages you can see here are for children aged from birth to 3 years old. Here are some extracts from the Development Matters guidance for supporting children aged 3 to 4 years old. This is our preschool curriculum here at Hartford Infant and Preschool, and will be followed in many other preschool and nursery settings. Continuing with the area of communication and language, here is a small extract of the communication and language element of the reception curriculum. As you can see, there's some information about what children might be learning and also some examples about what this one learning might look like in a classroom or an outdoor learning environment. During the reception year, we track the children's progress through these bands. In reception, we begin with the 3 to 4 age band when the children first join us, and then we spend the year tracking and enabling your child's progress through the reception band in each area of their learning. At the beginning of your child's reception year, we look at the expectations for the 3 to 4 year old age band and consider what children have shown us they are capable of in both their work with a teacher or a teaching assistant and their independent working call time. We then make a judgment and decide if a child is achieving some, most, or almost all of the expectations within a band. We call these judgments working below age-related expectations, working towards age-related expectations, working at age-related expectations, or working at greater depth. At different points in the year, we would expect children to be working at different levels. Throughout the year so far, the reception team have been looking at the ages and stages within the Development Matters guidance and making a judgment about whereabouts within those stages your child is working and making sure that they are progressing through the stages appropriately too. However, as we come to the end of reception and the end of the foundation stage, we have to complete a final assessment, which we call the Early Years Foundation Stage Profile, or the EYFS. To complete this assessment, we have to look at what are called the Early Learning Goals. The Early Learning Goals, or ELGs, are statements for each area of learning, and they summarise what the average child should be doing at the end of their year in reception. These Early Learning Goals are set by the government and are a legal requirement. Your children will be judged against these. As teachers, we have to decide if we've seen enough evidence of each Early Learning Goal within each child's independent learning. For each Early Learning Goal, teachers must judge whether a child is meeting the level of development expected at the end of the Early Years Foundation stage, and therefore expected, or not yet reaching the stage, which we would recall emerging. The ELGs are based on typical child development at the age of 5, so many children are likely to meet the expected level of development. Teachers should use their professional knowledge of the child to decide whether each Early Learning Goal description best fits the child's learning and development. The best fit model requires practitioners to consider the whole of each Early Learning Goal description when making these judgments. Best fit does not mean that the child has equal mastery of all aspects of the Early Learning Goal, and each Early Learning Goal descriptor is written in bullet point form, but this is for presentational purposes only to aid clarity. Teachers do not tick off these bullet points one by one. Rather, we use our professional judgment to determine whether each Early Learning Goal in its totality best fits the child's learning and development. The most accurate picture of the child's overall embedded learning will come from a holistic view of the descriptor. Here are the Early Learning Goals for the Communication and Language strand of the Early Years curriculum. As you can see, they're broken down into 2 areas: listening, attention, understanding, and speaking. There are some high expectations for 4 and 5-year-olds at the end of reception in our new curriculum. These are, however, imposed by the government, and we are required to assess all children against these goals regardless. To give you an idea of the level of work that is required in order to meet the Early Learning Goal, we're going to share some examples with you now. Let's have a look at the elements of literacy that link to the skill of reading. So essentially, the Early Learning Goal for reading is that children are able to read a sentence and understand what it says. They're also required to learn and use new vocabulary and to talk about stories, retelling and role-playing them in their own words and demonstrating their understanding of what they've read. In this photograph, a child is independently reading a sentence that she's found. You can see that in order to have read this sentence, the child will have had to recognise the keyword the and then used her phonic skills to sound out and blend together the other words. She then matched the sentence to the correct area of the tough spot. This showed that she had understood what she'd read, so this would provide some evidence that she has achieved the Early Learning Goal in reading. Here we have some evidence of children reading in the classroom environment. On the left, a child is taking part in a guided activity with an adult linked to a book we've shared, and they are reading the captions independently to match them to a picture. In the picture on the right, the child is independently reading a book in the book corner. They were able to pick out keywords recognised within the text and then had a go at writing them down. And both of these elements act as evidence towards that these children have achieved the Early Learning Goal. These are the sorts of things we would see a child at the expected level of development doing in the classroom on a regular basis. It's important to remember that we need to see the breadth and depth of each early learning goal. Seeing just one element on one occasion is not enough to be at the expected level. We would need to see several aspects of each and every goal, which can be quite a challenge. We would also expect a child who is working the expected level in the reading early learning goal to be reading a yellow banded or coded library book. Staying with the specific area of literacy, but this time focusing on writing, the early learning goal for writing states that children should be writing simple phrases and sentences using their phonic knowledge to support them with this. In this piece of writing, the child has been able to correctly spell some key words or common exception words such as I and to. They've also successfully used their phonics skills to have a go at spelling some other words. Because they have written the words as they sound using their phonic knowledge, it means that their piece of writing is able to be read by others. Again, in this second example, the child has been able to correctly spell the keyword the and has also been able to spell the word water correctly. The rest of the words the child would have been able to sound out and spell using their phonic knowledge and taught skills. This child has also remembered to start their sentence with a capital letter and end it with a full stop. The early learning goals for mathematics focus on the children having deep understanding of numbers to 10. They will be able to count, explore the composition of numbers, recall number ones to 5 and then 10, and also have an awareness of numerical patterns such as odd and even, and of the concept of doubling. In these examples, the children are exploring ordering numbers 1 to 10 and then 1 to 20. The children have independently ordered the numbers, showing that they're confident with recognising the numerals and ordering numbers. Through this activity, there were also discussions about the order of numbers and the concept of one more and one fewer. Here are some examples of children exploring addition. These children have built a number sentence independently or shown an addition calculation using the part-whole model. These examples show us that the children are able to count items correctly, recognise numerals, and that they have a developing understanding of addition. This child decided to double the number 5 by putting 5 eggs in each nest and then writing down the total. This shows that they can count accurately, understand the concept of doubling, can add and can then write corresponding numerals all independently. Again, when judging the children's achievement against the mathematics early learning goals, we would be looking for a range of evidence. There was a lot to take in there, but the really good news is that there is lots you can do with your child to help them get to the expected level by the end of the year, which we'll be coming on to in the second part of our session. Before I move on to what we can do together to achieve expected in the early learning goals, I also wanted to share with you something else that the children are expected to achieve by the end of the year. This is something that the government set. It's hoped by the end of reception to be well prepared for year 1. The children will have achieved what is known as a good level of development, or GLD. Now, in order to achieve a GLD, children need to be at the expected level across the prime areas of personal, social, and emotional development, communication and language, and physical development, and also in the specific areas of literacy and maths. This helps teachers and parents to understand broadly what a child can do in relation to national expectations. In addition, the EYFS profile provides a national child learning and development set of data. Here at Hartford Infant and Preschool, we believe that when parents and teachers work in partnership, our children will achieve well. So everything we suggest in this video presentation are all things that we also do in school. In order to be successful, we both need to work together to give your child the best possible chance of succeeding in reception. If one of these parts is missing, it puts extra strain on the other. They all need to be working in unison to achieve a shared goal. To help your child achieve expected level in personal, social and emotional development, there are lots of different things you can do. It's really important to help your child to develop positive relationships, play games that involve turn-taking, such as snakes and ladders. When reading stories, it's really great to get your child to consider how the characters might be feeling and to consider their different viewpoints. You could have conversations such as, "Have you ever felt like that?" to help your child develop empathy. Build your child's confidence by engaging into new experiences as often as possible. Meet new people, explore new places, try new things, and help to broaden their experience of the world so that they can tackle change and challenge with confidence. At home, have conversations about what you like and dislike and encourage your child to voice their opinion. Help your child to become as independent as possible by teaching them to manage independently as much as they can. But for times when your child does need help, you could teach them how to ask for this with phrases such as, "I need help with," or "Could you help me with?" To help your child achieve the expected level in communication and language, it's great to read lots of different types of stories and books to them, and to maybe have a go at what might happen next and make predictions. Talk about what's happening in the story as you read it and afterwards. It's a good idea to encourage your child to ask questions about what you've read, and it's important to remember that you reading to your child is just as valuable as them reading to you. When talking to one another at home, model good conversational skills such as talking one at a time and perhaps taking in turns to talk and listen. It's all about being able to listen. Play games that involve following instructions such as Simon Says. Treasure hunt clues are also a really good way to practice following instructions. When reading stories together, ask your child how and why questions such as, "How is the bear feeling at the end of the story? Why do you think the hungry caterpillar has tummy ache?" Reading poetry and jokes are also a good way of broadening your child's experience of text and are also really good fun. Michael Rosen is an excellent poet and author, and his poems can be easily found on Google. A great way of getting your child to listen really carefully is to listen to audiobooks. These are available at libraries and can also be played in the car, but most tablets also have apps or audiobook options that might be useful. Model how to be a good talker by making sure you always face your child when talking to them, speaking slowly and clearly. This may sound obvious, but lots of children forget to do this in a busy classroom, so it's great to practice. We also talk about eye contact, so we do that a lot, making sure that the children are giving one another eye contact, both when they're talking and listening. Also model correct past, present and future tense. In school, if a child says, "I run," we would gently correct this by replying, "Yes, you're right, you ran." Using language to make up stories or imaginative scenarios with toys is also a vital part of play. If your child comes home and shares a new piece of information with you, you could ask them to explain how they know that. For example, if they were to say 3 doubled is 6, hopefully they would be able to explain to you that they know this because when you double, you add the same number together. There are lots of things you can do to help your child in this important area. Encourage your child to be active in every way possible, whether it's running, jumping, climbing, skipping, swimming, football, anything that gets them moving and they enjoy doing. It's also important to work with your child on what we call their fine motor skills as well as their gross motor skills. This means keeping their fingers busy by doing up zips and buttons and coats. In school, we do lots of finger gym activities that involve them using the muscles in their fingers and all the way up their arms to their shoulders. If you do any writing or drawing at home, make sure your child is holding their pencil or pen correctly and that you model how to form letters correctly as well. There are lots of things to support you with this on our school website under the reception pages. Reading every day is the easiest way to help your child progress in their reading. You can mix things up a little bit by reading in different parts of the house each day, such as on the sofa, in bed, in the garden, or even in the bath. Children love to read with any adult, so you could read with an adult, a family member, a friend, or a sibling. As well as their reading book, it's also essential that the children ask questions at the end of a story to check their understanding. It's very easy for young children to get caught up in the decoding of words that they can forget to take in the sense of what they're reading. At school, if the child is reading a caption or a sentence, we would encourage them to reread it after they have done the decoding part. This helps with their fluency and their expression as well as their understanding. Common exception words or tricky words should also be practiced as often as possible. This could be made fun by playing a range of games. You could hide them around the house for a treasure hunt, race between child and parent to see who can read the most in 1 minute. They can be spread around the floor for the child to jump, skip, or hop to. You could play common exception word snap. And if all else fails, you could put Smarties on the cards, and if your child reads the word correctly, they can eat the Smartie. We've recently sent out a set of stage 2 and stage 3 common exception words. So hopefully you can use these to support you with some of these games. It's also important to keep your child practicing their phonics skills. The Alpha Blocks on the CBeebies website is an excellent resource for this. There is also an app called Hairy Letters, which is good for letter recognition too. It's a really good idea to encourage your child to write as often as possible at home. When writing, if you can make it purposeful for your child, we find that they may be more likely to engage. For example, you could write a birthday card, a note, a letter, a shopping list, or a message to a family member. Your child might want to write a label for their toys or for something in their bedroom. As the early learning goal states, children are expected to be able to spell common exception words correctly, but other words can be written as they sound. So encourage your child to use their phonic arm to segment up a word and then write down each sound that they can hear in the order that they hear them. It's also useful to practice writing the common exception words. This can be made fun by writing them in lots of different ways, for example in shaving foam, in paint, perhaps in chalk in the floor outside, or with a pretty sparkly pen or a special Spider-Man book. As the expected level at the end of the year is sentence writing, this is something you could build up to. It could be as easy as getting your child to write a sentence about their weekend, which they can then bring into school to show their teacher and the rest of the class. Numeral recognition and being able to order numbers are essential to achieve the early learning goals in maths. Again, numeral recognition can be made fun in lots of different ways, such as treasure hunts to find missing numbers, numbers on snowflakes that have been left by Elsa, or on webs that have been left by Spider-Man. You could number and order your child's train set or teddy collection, or link it to whatever it is that they're interested in. You could play games that involve finding one more or one fewer. Again, this is where sweets can be very useful. For example, if I had 10 sweets and I ate one, how many would I have left? If I had 8 sweets and Mummy gave me one more, how many would I have altogether? Addition and subtraction skills can be practiced using games on the computer and on tablets. ICT Games and the Top Marks website are excellent websites that we use for maths in school. Using toys that you have at home is also a fun way of practicing addition and subtraction. For example, the number of Barbies going in and out of the playhouse, or the number of cars going in and out of a garage. It's a really good idea to make use of everyday opportunities, and this is an easy way to practice skills such as doubling, halving and sharing. For example, halving and sharing the number of biscuits in the biscuit tin between siblings and family members, or having guests over for dinner, we need to double the amount of plates. These are just a few examples you could use. The most important thing to remember is whatever you do, you should aim to make it as fun as possible. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation today. If you have any further questions, please email them to myself, J Eagle, at hartfordinfantschool.org, or to the head teacher, R Lee, at hartfordinfantschool.org. Finally, here are some links to some useful websites.